Welcome to Thoughts Roundup. Nice to be with you today. Let's go back to where I was raised, where I was born. And there was no hospital involved whatsoever. So when I say that's where I was born, that's just not where they brought me back to. But anyway, it was 25 miles from Alexandria, and then it was 1.5 miles from the road that went from Alexandria to Leesville, Louisiana. I'm happy to say that now my father's name is on the road. In other words, if I write a letter to that address, I would have to put Grayson Marler's road on it. It's kind of neat. But anyway, way back, 1.5 miles back, now we had 40 acres, and part of it was farmed, and it was farmed out in front of the house. It had a watermelon patch on the left as you go in, and on the road that wound around from a big gate up there on the right hand side going in, you had corn and so forth and so on. A garden spot where we planted a garden, and then over to the right there was plum trees, had red plums and also yellow plums. We liked the yellow plums. I had a box of salt hid down there under the plum trees so that when I went down there I could salt my plums just right. Morton salt. When it rains, it pours. And so now up at where you come in to the field, had a big gate, and that big gate was hard to open. You'd have to drag on the dirt to get it across, and you had to be pretty strong to get the old gate across, to open it. Well, they fixed a way that you could, a lot of people walked during those times, and they put what we call a gap to the side at the fence, over the fence. You climb up steps, and then you've got a flat board on top, and then you've got steps going down on the other side, and they call that a gap. Well, like I say, from there to the road where people traveled was 1.5 miles. Well, my dad would come in at 5 o'clock in the evening. Now I'm going to tell you, it would get lonely back there. I had a little old hammer, and I remember I had a few nails, and I'd drive nails in everything I wasn't supposed to drive them in. Sometimes I'd pull nails out of something, put them somewhere else. Just bored out of my head. And my mother was busy farming and cooking and canning and everything else, and she didn't have time to do anything but whip us about 3 or 4 times a day. And now I'm not complaining about the whippings I got, because I don't think I ever got any that I didn't deserve. She used to say, "Okay, come in, OC, and get your whipping." I never wanted to see anybody work for anything they didn't get. And you've worked for this. And that was excitement around our house. But I keep watching the time. I couldn't tell time, but I'd ask Mama, what time is it? What time is it? I was waiting until 5 o'clock. I knew my dad come in. 5 o'clock. I'd wait for him to come in. And I wanted to see him. And so I would go and I would get up on that gap. Now, pretty soon after he turned off the main road, there were so many bumps and mud holes and ruts, and on the old truck was pretty shackledy. Pretty soon after he turned off the road, I could hear him. I knew pretty well he was on his way, and I was looking down. I could see down to a curve where the jessamine trees bloomed on the right, and to the left where my mother had 3 wash tubs that she washed her clothes in down at the spring, and made lye soap in a wash pot. She would take those clothes and put them in that wash pot and boil them real good. And it was all, Monday was wash day. And so I could see down as far as the jessamine trees. And I'd wait for that truck to make its turn. And it would rattle. I knew just about what mud holes or what rough places they were at. I knew just about how close, and I would get so excited, just so excited. I just couldn't understand it. My dad was fixing to pop around that curve, and after a while I'd see that old green truck, and he came around that curve, and he'd come up, and he'd park at the gate and start to go open the gate. And when he did, I'd jump down off the gap, run down those steps, and I'd go get up on the other seat, other side of the truck, and sit down, because I wanted to ride home with him. That was a big thing for me as a little boy. I would ride home with my dad. And man, you talking about such memories. Let me ask you something. Are you standing on a gap? Are you listening? Are we listening? I don't know, something about it, it makes me, I hear sabers rattling. I hear bombs exploding. I hear wars and rumors of war. I'm kind of think we need to get excited, because the Lord's coming. And I want to ride home with my Father. I want to ride home with my Father. Maybe you ought to, maybe we all ought to stand on the gap. He's coming. I hear him. All you got to do is listen at the news, and you can hear, you can almost know about where he is by reading the prophecies and listening to what's happening. Get on the gap. Lord willing, see you tomorrow.